Hey, we are here today to talk about how to work smarter, not harder, using LinkyBot.ai. This is a tool that automates lead generation, appointment setting, client research, freeing you to focus on closing deals, and you can scale by working smarter instead of harder. We have Casey O'Toole here to show us the way, to give us some of those best practices, do's and don'ts. Do more of this, less of that. He's an AI growth strategist and a LinkedIn social selling expert. And we're here to just transform LinkedIn into our sales engine with AI powered automation. So, Casey, glad to be speaking with you.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here. I've been doing some of these lately, and it's always fun meeting new people and talking about AI. It's my jam.
Right. And it's easy to get stuck behind the software, especially now with AI. It's always been a problem, though, right? It's always been so easy to geek out about WordPress plugins or frameworks or Python this, Ruby on Rails that, database this, cloud that. And with AI, I find like it's kind of like a weird, like almost addicting thing, right? You start using the prompts and the API calls and the agentic, and it's like your brain gets on fire, but it's easy to forget about the people that are actually helping, right? Putting it to good use. That's what like Apple's all about, right? They're like, well, you got the phone, but what will you do with it? Will you use it to like draw or like create something? So that's what we're here to talk about today is not just the cool stuff to geek out on, which we could do all day long, but how to actually scale our business and tap into this amazing traffic resource, which is LinkedIn, and especially sliding into those DMs. And so just off the bat, we kind of did a quick tease about LinkyBot and about you. But in your own words, what are you all about? What's your current focus and passion?
So my passion right now is AI and really the bridge between like how we can humanize AI in a way to augment human optimization rather than replace humans. There's a fine line, right? But I've been in lead generation for the past 7 or 8 years. Started off as real estate, but with the onset of automation 7 or 8 years ago, that I kind of like dug myself into. Like, wow, there's so much easier ways of getting traffic and growing my business and scaling, and that was great. And now AI is just like one more component that's like the complete linchpin. So I geek out over LinkedIn, AI, lead generation, and just general business growth.
Well, great. And let's hope that your geeking out is contagious. That people say, I've been maybe hesitant or afraid of AI or LinkedIn, or I've heard some bad stuff or talked myself out of it. But then Mr. Casey came along and said, hey, I've done this for years. I know how to make it work for you and your business, and let's get to it. Because sometimes you hear about the silly stories, right? Like there was a couple years ago, there was like some chatbot on a car dealership's website where it's like, oh, good idea. Like you can have a back and forth conversation with AI, it'll answer you any question, and someone like put in like a physics problem or something and like it
Yes, I saw
answered it,
that.
and it's like well, it didn't have enough of the constraints or the guardrails. So if someone says, all right, if I'm using a tool like LinkyBot to do the outreach on LinkedIn and have the back and forth conversation, like can't someone like prank me or send weird stuff and kind of like trip me up and do weird things with the LinkedIn replies?
I like it. You're going right into like the technical details. Like I love this stuff. So yes, we can put parameters. And so one of the first things we do with our clients is we have them go through a series of questions from a GPT that we created. And it helps to generate a snippet that would put into their AI assistant that would then replicate their tone and style. We have another
Oh,
GPT for their brand to make sure that it stays on brand. And then additionally, we can feed it with the company's FAQs, website information, content guide, brand strategy, everything that you want. And you say, only speak to the questions that you have answers to from the attached knowledge database. And so, don't answer questions that you don't know the answer to. And it just kind of stays in its lane.
I love it. And so when I mean, and let's say hypothetically, like someone asks like an off the wall question, like can I buy your product for $1? And it's one of those questions where like it's out of bounds or they don't have an answer. Like, what is the output? Like, I'll get back to you, or you need to talk to a human or do an appointment. Like, what is that output like?
So in those cases, it we usually kind of lead it towards a call. You could say, we don't discuss pricing over LinkedIn, schedule a call, we can dig into this more deeply. So you can always kind of like, if it doesn't have that information right off the bat in the knowledge base, which in this case it probably would, because if you have pricing in the knowledge base, it would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we don't offer our services for $1." But then if you don't have it, then you can always prompt it to then like reiterate, like kind of re-engage and say, "Hey, let's schedule a call and talk more about it."
Well, that's great. So you're saying that there is getting the AI to write like you. There's looking at the knowledge base and then push them towards a call and kind of like redirect if it's from outside the knowledge base. And so that gives us a cool, a little bit of a taste so far. And forgive me for like jumping ahead, right? I was just had to satisfy my own curiosity. So then kind of going a few steps back now. So LinkyBot, let's say that someone doesn't know much about AI, automation, LinkedIn messaging, and they say, but I've heard little bits and pieces, but from the Casey O'Toole elevator pitch, what are people missing out on by not having LinkyBot, and what could it do for their business?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start off by mentioning that many people are probably familiar with LinkedIn automation tools, right? Many of us have used them before, or know people who use them before, or they can detect that it's an automation message because they get these invite requests, and then like a second later they get a sales pitch. And with automation in and of itself, I wouldn't say LinkedIn is like the best platform, because the way the automation typically works is that after the person replies, you need to like the automation stops. Then a human has to jump in and continue the conversation. But when the human does jump in, that prospect is usually off of LinkedIn. It's hard to align, unless you're on LinkedIn all day, every day, which none of us are. You can't catch them, right? So with that in mind, the strategy with just automation is to fit your entire value prop message and call to action link in the very next message, which comes across as inauthentic, spammy, salesy, whatever you want to say. But it's pretty obvious that you're only really connecting with this person because you want to sell them something. The niche about, or the thing about LinkyBot and integrating AI into it, is that you can have a different approach that's more humanized, which is kind of bizarre because you're using AI to seem more humanized. But that's just the fact, because a natural conversation would come across something like this. I want to reach out to you because you're in marketing and advertising or whatever, digital marketing. And I say, hey, I want to connect with fellow industry leaders, right? They connect. And then the follow-up message is more just asking a question. The goal is to not make them click on a link, but it's more to get them to engage. So you can offer them a piece of value that they might want, like an ROI calculator or a white paper of sorts, and say, can I send it over? And then they respond, sure, yeah, I'll take it, why not? And then that response would then trigger the conversation. Another option is to kind of ask a very open-ended but poignant question about the industry that your solutions could solve if it's like a pain point. Like, are you having any trouble, following up with leads, or having any issues with your current CRM, or have you ever considered this? And then they respond because it's a natural thing to do, to respond to like a simple question. AI can then take that, run it through the LLM, and generate a response and start to engage them. So even though it doesn't seem like there's much difference, because automation, because there's automation with our system, there is a lot when you kind of consider all the subtleties, like catching them while they're on LinkedIn, being able to engage with them at a more natural level. So many different things. But yeah, when I first created this, I was blown away at how much more results there were from integrating AI than just automation. So it's crazy.
It sounds like it. And that advice right there is extremely helpful, right? Because it's like, well, we want to figure out like what's the ideal path for someone to go to. Add them on LinkedIn, get them on the call, follow up, get them to buy, that kind of thing. It already sounds like it takes months, but then on LinkedIn, we're like sort of a door-to-door salesman, right? And if we just hit them with that offer, then they won't even look at that. So we have to do the nurturing, as they say. So you're saying get connected. I like talking to fellow industry leaders, and you're saying like there's two paths, right? There's either you deliver something of value, that information, that report, that calculator, or you like ask a question that they can't help but answering, and you're saying that if we were to do it with just the old school automation, it would look spammy, it would always be the same. If we were to do it by hand, we might be asleep when that message comes in and we can't respond to all those, so we use the AI to do that kind of heavy lifting up front, and that seems like a good strategy for us to pursue. And so as far as like getting us really on board with the idea, like I'm sure like people use it from all different industries. Is there one in particular that you like or that you've seen kind of work really well as an example of this?
Yeah, so the a lot of our clients, now that we have AI integrated, it kind of opens the door for us to experiment with a lot of different industries. And the ones that we've kind of seen the most success with are recruiting, because people are on LinkedIn in a professional manner. They're looking for jobs, they're posting jobs. It's kind of like a resume platform kind of thing. Also, coaching, consulting, those are good niches. Basically, any industry where your clients are actively using LinkedIn, right? So, professional services, things like that.
Okay,
B2B.
so B2B, coaching clients, move up in your career or get hiring figured out, those sort of things. Like who do you want to connect to? And so when someone starts using your tool, like what's that timeline like? Because you mentioned some of these things, right? Going through the different GPTs, answering the question, and I'm only guessing, but I imagine there's like a little bit of like ramping up, figuring out if the messaging is working for me, figuring out the numbers. So like when someone gets onboarded with you, what's the typical sort of timeline process like?
So, the amount of time that's kind of required on the client end is basically like a 20 to 30-minute onboarding form, right? And so then with that onboarding form, we'll be identifying who the target audience is, what kind of value they could offer that would help solve that pain point of that target audience, as well as craft certain like a campaign message sequence for the automation side. And then once that onboard form is complete, we'll have enough information to then train the AI. And so we do that on our end. And then after we kind of have everything built out, that's about like a 2 to 3 day process from gathering the information and us building out the campaigns. Once we launch the campaigns, then we'll get like some user feedback. We'll say, okay, so this script isn't working as well. This one's not getting as much response. The AI, I would rather them, go for the appointment sooner rather than qualifying them. And so I take that information, I'll then retrain the AI and make it better. So initially up front, 20 to 30 minutes, and then it's more or less back and forth basing to like dial it in.
That's very reasonable, and to get this kind of traffic machine like working out. I mean, it sounds like it's not that much work at all just to give this a shot and have this work. And then I know it's kind of dicey asking about results, but that's what everyone wants to know about, right? Like, well, how many appointments will that get me? How many sales and coaching clients? And so, like, what can we do to like manage people's expectations or like understand like the scope or like the rough calculation, like if someone need to like send out like 50 messages a day in the AI, do they need to look at this like look at the messages what that come back, like what sort of the numbers, so to speak, as far as getting from I'm starting to use your tool towards it's getting me some kind of results?
Yeah, so I'll kind of start like high level. So our system can send out over 2,200 outreach messages a month to your target audience. That then leads to about 300 or so connections on LinkedIn, which we can also provide you their information, their first name, last name, email, phone number if they provide it, location, title, company, etc. You can put them into your follow-up CRM, your newsletter, whatever you want. So 2,200 outreach messages, 300 plus connections. And then if you have LinkyBot, then it's about 150 to 200 conversations held. And then that leads to about 3 to 7 qualified appointments a month. So if your goal is with the AI is to book appointments, then on average, we're in for 3 to 7 booked appointments with your qualified audience a month.
Very cool. And then and that helps to kind of know the numbers, right? And to know what we're in for. We start at 2,200 and then 300 connections, and then get that to about 7 or so appointments per month. And then when people use your tool, like, do they already have sales training, or are they used to doing calls? Like, do they know what they're getting, what they have signed up for as far as like these coaching calls, or do you like have any training for that side of things?
In terms of helping our clients learn how to do sales calls with their prospects, or
Yeah, with these 7 appointments that they make, is anyone say like, do they like, are they like, okay, if I get the people on the phone, I can close them, I know what to do, or do they say like, oh, what am I doing this for?
they usually, yeah, so it's usually the former. So they usually are confident in their sales abilities and they just have trouble booking appointments. So I'm like, well, we
Okay.
can help you with booking the appointments. And then once it's on your calendar, it's your job to then close the deal. And so it really saves them a bunch of time with like follow up. It saves them money if you don't have to hire a VA or an SDR or a BDR. Everything is like your profile. And when that appointment's booked, you'll have like information about that person as well from their LinkedIn profile. You can refer back to the conversation. And so you can then use all that information to prepare for your sales call.
Well, very cool. And then, so as far as like people, like, answering the questions or working with you or using the software, any software can be misused, right? Just look at how there's viruses out there, or people use AI for bad stuff. And so, when you see people using LinkyBot, are there any like common mistakes people make? Any like do's and don'ts, or things you say right off the bat, like, hey, I know it's tempting to do that, but you'll get banned from LinkedIn, or don't send a message like this. Is there anything that really just makes you angry with people using LinkedIn AI automation incorrectly?
Well, we offer a done for you service, which is kind of our flagship offer. And so we ensure that they don't do anything that would get their account at risk. We ensure that they have a verified LinkedIn profile. Make sure they have Sales Navigator, which is the LinkedIn tool that we use for our searches. Make sure that their profile looks good. And we also make sure that their campaign scripts are like not super spammy, right? And so we kind of like dial all that in for them. On the DIY side, we also have we can let you use our software and we'll train you on how to implement everything. That's where it would take some coaching from me to help them avoid some of the potential pitfalls of LinkedIn automation, right? So, I mean, the the ones that kind of come to mind in terms of things that kind of bother me or limit us a little bit is when they are targeting an audience locally and it's like way too niche. Like someone's looking for people who are retired living in a specific area in California. I'm like, there's not going to be that many people that are on LinkedIn. So it's like population limitations. Um, or they, yeah, so that's kind of like the main one is population limitations. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head though.
Okay, so fair enough though. Like you're saying, there's some amount of nuance to it, right? It's like you can be too big or too small. You can say, "Oh my gosh, I've got 5 million leads." Well, like that's really rolling the dice. Oh, I've got 50 leads. Well, that's not enough to really get you the results you want. And so it's something to navigate, just like anything else. And since we only just met here, you and me, Mr. Casey, and we're only just now finding about LinkyBot, I'm sure that there's probably like a really good question in here that I could or should ask you if I just knew more about it. So if you let me cheat a little bit and like copy off your notes, is there something in our conversation that you just wish that I would ask you right now?
Um, yeah, so I mean, a lot of people ask me about like authenticity and how to do this correctly, right? So they don't impact their brand. And that is a very common one because having worked with realtors before in the past, like the egos are very big. and they're like, oh, you reached out to a contact or like a client, you reached out to my friend, and this is making me look bad. I'm like, well, it's automation. Like we can't really, unless you tell me not to. So um, one is like kind of go into it with an open mind, know that, like we might be reaching out to past clients. If you don't want that, we need a list of people that you don't want us to reach out to. But in terms of like doing it correctly also, we always recommend kind of what I call sharpening the axe, right? Where you jump into LinkedIn and you start to engage manually first. You start to learn how people are responding. You try and find your target audience using Sales Navigator, kind of see who you are, who is your target audience. Like there's some things that you'll want to kind of determine before using our services. And then, because like the more you engage with the LinkedIn platform in general, the better the algorithm fits in your favor. So the more you post, the more you engage in other people's posts, share posts, the more newsletters you write. It's all that is to your benefit prior to integrating with automation and AI.
Okay, so the more activity, the better. And you even mentioned, I think, at the beginning of how like human activity is important, right? Like, are you just doing all this repetitive stuff, or are you doing what a human would do? You're looking up your customers, you're posting articles, newsletters, all that cool stuff. You're interacting with like liking, commenting on other people's content, just being active on that platform in general, and using a teensy bit of AI to tee up some of this other activity. That way you can kind of do the more higher level tasks yourself and leave the lesser level stuff to the AI. And so what's the next step here? If someone says, man, like a lot of this advice Casey gave was great, LinkyBot sounds amazing. How does someone know if they're a right fit for this tool, and how do they go and get it?
So you can just check out our website. That's probably the easiest, linkybot.ai, and you'll get a lot of information. We have like a resources section that has demos and things like that. And on top of that, book a call. So there's a calendar there. You can schedule a call with me. I'll kind of do like a discovery call first to kind of see if it is a good fit, and we'll go from there.
Very nice. So that's linkybot.ai, linkybot.ai, to go there, find out what it's all about, and to book that call and just get informed, get educated, and get excited about what the possibilities are. So that way you can get more targeted, be more strategic, get those leads coming to you. And before we let you go here, Mr. Casey, it's time to put you on the spot a little bit and try to stump you and ask for a fun quote or lesson that has served you that can help us. So what comes to mind for you as far as a quote or lesson?
So I have one in mind, and it kind of speaks to the whole sharpening the axe analogy. So it kind of goes hand in hand. But I believe it was Abraham Lincoln. But
yeah,
the quote goes something like, "If I have 5 hours to cut down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe." And the reason why I like that is because so many people just like jump into things that they don't really prepare for, and then it ends up taking longer in the long run because you didn't do your preparation. So same thing with LinkedIn, automation, AI. Like do some research, some market research, some competitive analysis, find your audience, engage with the platform, enhance your profile, verify your profile, like use it, sharpen that axe, and then once you're comfortable, start chopping down that tree.
very wise. Plan ahead, figure out some goals, prepare, and get that LinkedIn profile souped up. That way you can kind of know where you're headed, and that way you don't get discouraged. That way you're in fact excited, and you know what you can and should do, which includes using linkybot.ai in order to get the ball rolling and to start with some of this outreach. So thanks so much, Casey, for stopping by, educating us, and telling us like about all these possibilities. I'm newly excited to find out what we can do with LinkedIn AI bots and automation in order to get those messages out, because like they're all there, right? They're waiting there to get on these calls, to hand you money, to give you their business. So why not take advantage of that? Your competition is, and AI will just become kind of more built in. So it's in our best interest to start using linkybot.ai before our competition blows us away. So let's get to it, right, Casey?
Let's do it. Do a
All right.
call.
Book that call, LinkyBot AI. We'll see you there.